You've already started to listen to a MultipleSources.net podcast, and for more episodes of It's Always Sunny in Phoenix podcast, as well as other content such as other NBA teams, pro wrestling, and even comic books, what? Visit MultipleSources.net. And if you want to join the MS family, go to their website. MS is always looking for more writers and other podcasts, as well as video editors. If you want to join the family, just go to MultipleSources.net and check out the sidebar or something. They got something set up. Check it out.
Are you ready? Oh, yeah.
Hello, and welcome to the It's Always Sunny in Phoenix podcast. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about everything Phoenix Suns, and you are about to hear a special Olympic edition because the Olympics just started. I'm Mitch, and today I'm joined by David. How are you doing?
I was awake for that entire Olympic game, which is can't be said for everyone, but I was there. I was awake. I witnessed the entire thing.
That is very impressive because I didn't make it through the whole thing, but it was the first game, so it's okay.
We've already played China like 3 times, so
yeah. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I
whatever.
You know.
Quality first win. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. We love to hear from you, and we had some great responses last week. We mentioned that you could pretty much just say hello to us on Twitter and we would respond, and I'm happy to say that we responded to everyone who said anything. So just search It's Always Sunny in Phoenix, and you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and then sunnyinphxpod@gmail.com is the place to email us with your questions or suggestions. But we are going to get into it now and start off with a little bit of Suns news before we get right into the Olympic stuff. Devin Booker was quoted recently saying something along the lines of he wants to be one of those guys who stays with one team for his whole career. And I think that is super awesome, but I want to hear your thoughts, David.
Yeah, so I actually have the quote up here, so I'll go ahead and read that real quick.
Perfect.
I went on NBA.com, onto the Suns website, if anyone else wants to read it, the full article, but his quote is basically, "I love it in Phoenix, and I want to be one of those guys that gets drafted by one team and stays there the whole time. You know they turn around the franchise, and they get love for that in that city like they're the mayor. People still wear Steve Nash jerseys here. That's definitely something I want to be." So that's basically the entire quote. He knows the right things to say to this franchise, for sure. You know, pointing out that people still wear Steve Nash jerseys. I still rock my Steve Nash jersey whenever I have a reason to. So that's me. Will be rocking a Booker jersey whenever I have a reason to in a little while, you know, probably once the season starts kicking back up again. But,
Yep.
You know, he's pulling at all the right heartstrings, really, of Suns fans. And after the last couple of years, having some of this positivity stuff, whether it be Jared Dudley that just had that jersey giveaway last week, talking about the franchise, hearing about how Amari originally wanted to come back and play a year with the franchise to be around Leandro and Jared, even though that didn't happen. Just some of these more positive things and words. I totally the positive things about the franchise really help us. It makes me feel better because after the whole Markieff and Marcus Morris, after Goran getting butt hurt, you know, it's nice for for guys to actually seem like they want to be here. That's where I was trying to go with this sentence.
Definitely. No, that's a great point. You know, I like what you say about having a Steve Nash jersey and wearing it. I have 2 Steve Nash jerseys, and I usually wore one of the 2 on Suns game days last year. But Booker is next on my list of NBA jerseys to get. So that was before the quote too, but this quote is just like, yep, okay, he's the one.
Yep. It's like, I don't feel bad about getting his jersey anymore. I didn't feel bad to begin with, but I definitely don't feel bad now.
Right. But no, this is a great quote, and I would love to see him turn into like a Tim Duncan kind of player who just is the face of the franchise for a long time. And, even as Suns fans, we don't like the Spurs, but everyone respects Tim Duncan and respects that he stayed with one team for a long time. So I think Booker can be someone like that. Same with Kobe. And I mean, it's tough to make those comparisons this early on. Sometimes Suns fans can get a little ahead of themselves, but when it comes to being the face of a franchise and being that dedicated, I can definitely see that happening for Booker.
Yeah, and I mean, he kind of said it himself. Even a guy like Nash, who was the guy for our franchise. I mean, we even talked about it when we were talking about Amari. Amari was never the guy for our franchise because 13 was always there. So, be that Nash kind of guy. Be that, Dirk is always going to be the Dallas guy. Tim's always going to be the Spurs guy. Kobe's always a Laker, Some of these guys, Westbrook will always be a Thunder guy because even if he leaves, then everyone will be like, hey, nope. He signed that extension for 1 extra year. He's good enough in our eyes. But, that was... I don't know where I was going with that. But, he made the comparison himself to how he wants to be one of those guys that's just the face of a franchise, like Steve was for us. And, as a team that has been trying to find that next face since Steve left, if Booker's that guy, I am 100% okay with that.
For sure. And one thing that I think we have to mention when you bring up Westbrook really quick is Enes Kanter, his little post where he photoshopped Russell Westbrook's face on Kevin Durant and said, I'm never leaving or something like that was hilarious.
Yeah, I loved that. We'll actually bring up Westbrook in a little bit, so we'll be able to talk about all that stuff.
Yes.
So
yeah, that was hilarious.
There's been some great stuff on that front. But just this Booker quote, there's not a whole lot to talk about with it, but just being able to just talk about it and positivity, and everyone always talks crap about the franchise and ownership and everything, but some of it warranted. It's always good when a guy wants to be here, and I want him in a Suns jersey as long as possible. So that's just good, and it seems like he, or at least publicly, has said the same thing. So I will gladly get behind that and bring it up every 5 seconds.
Another thing that I kind of want to add about that whole thing is you may have noticed on our website, multiplesources.net/Phoenix Suns.
Shameless plug.
That we changed our little header to "The cheese is warming up." Some of you may remember Charles Barkley going off one night saying all sorts of things about the Suns franchise and saying how we put pickles on our nachos and how the cheese on the nachos is cold. So the cheese is warming up. We still don't have jalapenos on our nachos, but less pickles than before.
Yeah, only about 3 pickles instead of the usual. But,
exactly.
We got to talk, if we're going to talk about NBA news, we should also talk about the big Westbrook extension. So that is a 3-year, $85 million extension, I believe is what it is. Mm-hmm. So it basically just adds a year onto the end of his contract. It takes away his player option that he could have had last year and pushes it 2 years. So, or this year, coming up, next year, whatever. Words. So 3-year, $85 million contract. It pushes that up. It makes the Thunder franchise a little bit more certain of what they can do. We will be doing, I think next week, we're going to do kind of a State of the NBA podcast. So we'll talk about it a little bit more, but a lot of Thunder fans will be happy and won't be thinking about the possibility of Westbrook getting traded this year, and we know that they will be going and competing for playoffs and probably trying to compete for a championship if they are a contender still, but they're at least a playoff team.
For sure. Yeah, and, Westbrook being the guy in OKC without Durant, I'm pretty excited to see what that looks like. I think he is going to have some more options that he hasn't had in the past, and I'm excited to see what he can do. I've seen people, just people talking on Reddit saying they kind of think he is an MVP candidate already, and I'd love to see him kind of take a crack at that. And one other thing I want to mention is that for our State of the NBA podcast, last week we mentioned we'd have Chris Axman from the Almighty Baller podcast on this week, and we just had something come up last minute and had to reschedule, so that is coming.
Yeah, we probably should have put that at the top, but whatever.
Yeah.
Words. We got it up eventually. So, another kind of wrinkle is that some of the other Thunder players will be having different roles and different Twitter roles as well, because Enes Kanter has had some pretty great tweets about a lot of the situations. What was that one? That was the one of, it was Russell's face on KD's body, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So saying that like I'm never leaving or whatever, and
right.
Westbrook in his press conference was having quotes about loyalty and how much loyalty means to him. There was a question about if it stung for KD leaving, and Westbrook said stung for who. So he is
throwing shade.
A little salty,
yeah.
And he's a little pissed off, I think, and that makes me excited to watch him.
Yes.
So
those are elements of an MVP season.
Oh my
right
gosh.
there.
I don't think they will have the record for him to be the MVP, but I think he's definitely a candidate.
Yeah,
for
sure.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be fun, and we'll get more into that next week. So look back and look forward to that.
Yes.
Next up, we did just get done watching some Olympic basketball. Olympics has been going on today, but we're recording on Saturday, August 6th for a timestamp, because whatever. We just got done watching USA versus China, but let's go ahead and go in order a little bit, and let's talk about Australia versus France.
Yeah.
Ben, of course, our somewhat new writer. He will be the new writer until we get another
exactly.
writer.
He's not even that new anymore, but
nope.
Yeah.
But so when what I thought was going to be a lot closer of a game, Australia beat France 87-66. Pretty darn good. I was trying to look up a box score, but I don't have one up here. So hold on one second. I'm going to cut this out real quick.
Yeah.
As I try and find this dumb box score. I thought it'd be a lot easier than. Anyways. All right, so Australia versus France. We are going to talk about Australia versus France. It was a little bit not as close as we thought it was going to be. Instead of a close game, it was the opposite. The final score of Australia versus France was 87-66. I thought it was going to be a much closer game. If anything, I thought France might win. Just because of a little bit more of the experience in like Olympic Games and stuff. But that just wasn't the case. Really, the big contributor was the lack of French interior defense to this Australia win. So, if you were watching the game, there were so many cuts to the basket and rolls by big men, backdoor cuts that Australia just had just about any time they wanted. They were doing pick and rolls, and Andrew Bogut had so many lobs that he was able to finish that were passes from Dellavedova or just about anyone, where he would just get the roll and get to the basket and get a dunk. And with a guy like Rudy Gobert as the center for the France team, I was surprised by how often that actually happened. So 2-point percentage, Australia was up 58% to 46%. 3-point percentage, they were up 32% to 29%. Free throw percentage, they didn't win that battle, 67% to 88%. But just everything else was in their favor. The leading scorer for Australia was Patty Mills with 21 points. Aaron Baines had the most rebounds for the team with 8. Aaron Baines really set the tone early, I thought. As an NBA player, he was just tough on the inside and tough on the boards, getting tough shots. Dellavedova was really passing a ton, had 10 assists, led the team. He had 3 steals, and then Bogut had a block. And Bogut also was probably the most efficient, as well as being just the best player, I kind of thought, for Australia. He had 18 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block. Just played really well.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's not a whole lot much more to say. I could talk about how, really, on the France side of things, Tony Parker had 18, but I think Gobert had like 5 points.
Right.
And Diaw had 8 points, which Diaw shouldn't be really getting, I guess, that much more, but they needed some sort of offense, and none of the NBA guys were really giving them. I think Batum had like 5 or 6 points or 4 points or something like that. It was just a really bad showing by the French national team, and a really good showing by Australia. So I'm really excited to watch Australia a little bit more, watch them play. We're playing them on Wednesday?
I'm not sure.
That's the 10th, right? Yeah, Wednesday is the 10th. And that's when we should be playing them. So I'm really excited to watch that, and I'm really excited to watch Australia next. Do you have anything to say, Mitch? Or
Yeah, I only watched the very beginning of this game because I had something else going on. But the thing I want to talk about is early on in the game, Boris Diaw had a chase down block, and that is the beauty of international play right there. That just kind of sums it up. So that was kind of fun to see.
Yeah, and some of the other beauty of international play is, talk about different roles for guys. Patty Mills being a volume shooter instead of just a bench spark plug.
Right.
Andrew Bogut doing a little bit more on offense than being just like lob catcher, even though he caught a ton of lobs, but and being a little bit more than just a defensive anchor. Boris Diaw was basically carrying the French team during the second quarter, where it looked like they were just going to get blown out even worse than they did, and was able to kind of keep them in the game until Tony Parker was able to go off. Who was it else? Joe Ingles. He played pretty darn well. Aaron Baines, as I already said, was really good in interior-wise on offense and defense, I thought, especially on the boards. And then Dellavedova really didn't do much different than we thought, but being that main facilitator, he had some really good passes. So I'm going to give him some kudos for that, and being able to be that main facilitator, something he wasn't really ever for Cleveland. So just these different roles for guys in international play is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, but Dellavedova did continue to wear his dumb mouth guard, even in international play. So
he did, but
it can't all be good.
I don't know if it was because he just wasn't playing for the Cavs, but I was like, oh, hey, I'm okay with Delly a little bit right now, but you did not have those sentiments.
I did not.
So. All right, so after Australia and France, the other game that we just got done watching, was USA versus China. I watched the entirety of that game, which I really shouldn't have.
I don't know how you did it.
It was pretty bad. The final score was 119-62.
Yep.
Yeah.
That sums it up.
I wish I was making that up. It's not 80-40. It's a lot worse than that. We shot 60% from the field compared to 38% by China, 37% from three-point compared to 29% from three-point by China, and then 73% from the free throw line compared to 71% by China. Our leading scorer and tied leading scorer of the game was Kevin Durant, who tied with, oh my gosh, Zhan Lin Yi. I'm not going to try Yi. JL Yee, or Yee JL, or whichever way it's supposed to go. But Kevin Durant also, so 25 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. Our leading rebounder was actually Carmelo. He is the perfect small ball, or I guess it's not even small ball. He's the perfect international 4, really.
Yeah.
He's just a great rebounder. He's a great scorer. He's actually a lot better of a defender than casual fans would want you to believe. But, he was just great. Kevin Durant had 6 assists, led the team. Looks like Klay Thompson. Oh, no, Kevin Durant had most steals with 2. I only saw K. Leave me alone. And then Carmelo Anthony led the team in blocks with 1. So that's a tie with a couple other guys, I believe. But this was just a beatdown. It looked like there were a couple of times where it was kind of going to be a close game. U.S. started out a little slow. The lineup that we start with of Kyrie, Klay, Durant, Carmelo, and Boogie can start out really slow just because of the reliance on the three-point shot, really, with that lineup. But it turned on the Jets like nothing. I think it started out where China was up like 6-2 or 6-4 or something like that, and then the U.S. had like a 12-3 run and was up. So it was just one of those things where even in the beginning, you knew it was like, oh, so China's getting a little bit of a buff or whatever, and then it was gone. So it was a tough game to watch, just from a standpoint of it was just a beatdown the entire time. Do you have anything to say about it, Mitch?
So I was only able to watch the second half of this game, but I saw the first half highlights, and it was about what I expected. This was our 3rd time playing China. Probably playing them a little too much, but whatever. It was a good way to start hot in our in the beginning of our Olympic play. I was pretty impressed with Carmelo. The majority of the first half highlights that they showed on the Olympic channel was from him. So that was good to see. It looked like DeMarcus Cousins played pretty well throughout the whole game as well. But yeah, it was just an all-around good showing for the U.S., and we'll see how we go from here. This was just kind of like it just seemed like another warm-up game, basically.
Yeah, and being the 3rd time that we actually played China didn't really help that.
Right.
I don't know who decided to make that schedule, but there's always one team, I feel like, that you end up playing way too many times.
Yeah.
Talking about big men, DeMarcus Cousins and DeAndre Jordan, just a lot of these international teams have no answer to those guys.
Oh,
They're just bigger, stronger, more athletic. It's just really not that fair, and a lot of the guys on that Chinese team were in foul trouble very early. We were getting over the, I guess bonus was what it normally would be. I don't know if they even call it that in international play. But basically getting into the bonus within 4 or 5 minutes into the quarters. Mm-hmm. And the only way that they could really stop those guys from getting onto the boards is having 2 or 3 guys just pulling them down just about.
Right.
Just to stop them from getting each rebound and each dunk. There were a couple of times where they were just mauling, so that way putbacks wouldn't go in. I mean, it was just one of those things where those 2 guys are going to be some real tough matchups. Maybe against teams like, or I guess 2 teams, I guess there are, Lithuania and Australia. Maybe against those 2 teams, that might not be as much of an issue because those 2 teams have a little bit more of the size and the strength with the rebounding, so that might not be as much of an issue for them. But against some of these other teams like China, France might have that issue if they're going to play like they did against Australia.
Yeah.
Some of these other teams are just not going to be able to really match up well against our big men. And the fact that we only have 2, but they're still so good that it just doesn't matter. We don't need the extra big men. We just need those 2 guys. And we were playing Draymond a little bit at small ball center, but it's not really that necessary.
Right. I mean, I almost start to feel bad because you see like DeAndre Jordan completing a dunk with a guy like pulling his arm down so he gets the and one. It's like it just doesn't seem fair. But yeah, the matchups, I guess potential matchups against Australia and Lithuania are a lot more exciting to me.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually really looking forward to those matchups.
Yeah.
But even not our big guys, when it came to DeRozan had a dunk where a guy was going up to contest, and DeRozan just kept on going through him for the dunk. I think that was in the first half. It's just not really fair, and it's one of those things where it's just like, oh, and this is like almost a B team that we have right now because, half the top guys in the league aren't playing, and we don't have Westbrook, we don't have Curry, we don't have, LeBron, we don't have, oh man, this is tough.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. I'm going to thoroughly enjoy watching each of the games. I love international basketball. One, because we're pretty darn good always. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And two, because I just like seeing the dynamics. Yeah. My favorite dynamic, Jimmy Butler and DeMar DeRozan. There's a little bit of a budding bromance. I hope Kyle Lowry doesn't get a little bit too jealous.
Oh, I hope he does. I want a love triangle.
You want a love triangle? Maybe that's like their thing. Maybe it's all kind of just like interconnected. That there is no jealousy because they all love each other equally.
I hope so.
But DeMar and Jimmy were throwing like really bad passes to each other, just trying to do dumb, stupid stuff. And one of the passes, DeRozan was in the air, and like it was like this sideways pass, and it like bounced off of like Butler's like hands, like his fingertips, and went out of bounds. And DeRozan goes like running up to Butler, and like they go for like a like hand slap, but it ended up being a hand grab, and it was a little bit awkwardly long. For some reason, like it was just like a little bit longer than you thought it was, and they kind of just continued walking. And then they got subbed out. They're laughing and they're hanging all over each other on the sidelines. And I was like, man, this might be my new fan fiction or fan nonfiction. It writes itself.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely interesting.
But between that, I mean, the DeAndre Jordan and DeMarcus Cousins, brothel incident, we're having some really interesting bromances that I didn't see coming, and I love it.
Yeah, that there are always subplots like this when it comes to the Olympics.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And did you have anything else to say about the U.S. versus China game?
No, that was all I had.
Yeah, Jochi, we got to see a little bit of him some more. Yeah, he really needs a lot of muscle. I think he's gonna he's listed as he's playing center for China. Mm-hmm. I do not think that he will ever be able to play center in the NBA. I just don't see it happening. Yeah. I think he can be a 4. He has a lot of work to do, but maybe a 4 is what I'll go with. Because just a 5, I just don't think he's ever going to be big enough, weight-wise, or muscular enough to be able to go up against DeAndre or DeMarcus or half the other guys in the league that are big men. So, kind of going on, we are in the midst of the Olympics, so let's go ahead and just talk about some Olympic sports, what we're kind of looking forward to, what we are watching, if we've watched anything today. Why don't you go ahead and start off, Mitch?
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Today I haven't watched quite as much as I would have liked because I had some work stuff going on. But I got into soccer in the past World Cup, so I'm really looking forward to watching the U.S. soccer teams. The women's team usually does a little better, so I'm looking forward to watching the women's team a lot. I am still looking forward to watching the men's team, but they're just not quite as competitive. I mean, as an American, you have to be excited about watching swimming because of Michael Phelps. This is his 5th Olympics, and that's amazing. He's already like the most decorated Olympic athlete ever, and he's just going to add to that. So, of course, I'm excited to watch his events. it's always cool to see some of the track and field events, just some amazing displays of athleticism, like the high jump and the sprinting. That's always fun to watch. And then gymnastics is always fun to watch. A little bit of it gets a little repetitive for me, but I mean, those athletes, their bodies are just incredible.
Yeah, when it comes to the swimming and the gymnastics and stuff, that's something that I always wait until the medal rounds.
Right. Yeah.
It's not something that I'll ever watch the preliminaries or any of that kind of stuff. Basketball, I'll watch the preliminaries of. Something that I'm really hoping that I can catch a little bit of is rugby.
Oh,
rugby.
I did
started
watch
back
some
up.
rugby.
I am a big fan of rugby. I try and watch it whenever I can. I will definitely work to watch some rugby games. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I watched a little bit of beach volleyball, Brazil versus Czech Republic.
Okay.
I believe is what it was. I don't remember the names exactly. I think there was an Agatha and Barbara for Brazil. I think were the names. Someone will tell me I'm wrong, but so I watched that a little bit. That was a lot of fun to watch. I did watch the U.S. women's soccer versus France. It was all right. I'm not a big soccer guy or a football guy or whatever you want to call it. I don't really care. So it's just not my thing necessarily, but it was a decent game and I watched it, and man, some of those people in the crowd are a little harsh. Hope Solo, I guess, is either pregnant or trying to get pregnant or something and down there. And the entire crowd was booing her whenever she would have the ball, as either she blocked it or was kicking it out or whatever because she's goalie or whatever.
Well, Hope Solo is a different story because of the domestic abuse thing.
Okay, I have no idea what's going on. All I know is they were booing her and then chanting Zika.
Oh wow!
And I was like, isn't that a little harsh? But I don't really follow soccer, so it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, that's a little bad. Let's not have that.
Wow, that is rough.
Yeah, but other than that, I think the only other thing that I watched was table tennis.
Oh, yes.
I watched a little bit of table tennis, which I did not know was an Olympic sport.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really glad that now I know that it's an Olympic sport. And it was ridiculous. It was U.S. versus... Oh my gosh, what was it? It was Venezuela, I think?
Huh.
I think is what it was. It was something Zhang for the U.S. versus Venezuela. I don't remember the names.
Huh, okay.
But table tennis, that was a lot of fun to watch, and it's a lot. Professional table tennis, Olympic table tennis, is a lot different than drunken 4 a.m. table tennis. So
yeah, it is actually very impressive. To anyone who doesn't think table tennis is a sport, go watch Olympic table tennis and then tell me what you think, because they are amazing.
They're holding the paddles all sideways, and they're throwing it up underhand and hitting it, and it's oh my gosh, this is too much.
Yeah, it is pretty intense. Earlier today I did watch a little bit of the South Korea-Japan indoor volleyball game, and I always forget how impressive volleyball is. So yeah, that was good, and there's a pretty interesting story going on with U.S. women's beach volleyball with Misty May Trainor's new partner in the beach volleyball. So it'll be fun to watch that story evolve a little bit, and saw just a little story during a commercial or a break today, and so that got me kind of excited to watch them. And yeah, this is a great time of year. I love the Olympic season.
And I love international basketball.
Yeah.
So if it's an Olympics, if it's if it's Euro Cup, if it's whatever, I'm down to watch. And I'm down to watch just dumb sports on TV because I have nothing better to do.
Yeah. And
I don't...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I do want to shout out the U.S. women's basketball team, too. I'm interested to see Breanna Stewart, who just graduated from Connecticut, UConn. as it's known in the biz, I suppose. She'll be playing on the U.S. women's team, so I'm interested to see how she does. In college, I went to a lot of women's basketball games. I actually only missed one in my whole career, one women's game and one men's game, so kept it even there. So I have an appreciation for the women's game as well. In my mind, basketball is basketball. I like watching it no matter who's playing, so I'll definitely be watching the U.S. women as well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try and watch a game or two. I have a really tough time watching it, just because the rules are just so different and all that. So I'm going to try, but try and root on as much of the USA stuff as possible. Definitely, sure. I'll watch some of the medal stuff for when it comes to swimming. I'll watch medal stuff just about for everything. And I guess so. Did you hear that? I guess skateboarding is going to be a thing that's coming to the Olympics in
really?
2020.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Yeah,
that.
Which makes me very excited.
Yeah,
because I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
That I think I heard that during the opening ceremonies last night. Because we might as well just date this podcast even more of when we're actually recording it. But yeah, watching the opening ceremonies, and they said something that skateboarding was going to be at the next Olympics, and I was like, oh, right on. I'm down for that.
Yeah, baseball and softball are coming back as well. And
yeah,
I am excited to watch those sports. I know a lot of people are not super thrilled with watching baseball or softball, but I like it, and I liked watching Olympic baseball and softball back in the day when it was a thing before. So I'm excited for that to come back, and yeah, Olympic baseball and softball, definitely looking forward to watching that in 2020.
Yeah, that'll be fun. And are there any other sports, anything random that might be interesting?
Not off the top of my head. I watched a little rugby today as well. I watched the Australian women's team, and they're good. They're really good.
Yeah, that does not surprise me whatsoever.
Yeah, they were playing Colombia, and it was 50-something to 0 when I turned it on. Oof.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, rugby is a sport that I am trying to learn better because it seems super fun.
It is pretty fantastic. Watch rugby, all you people, because it's great.
Yeah, for sure. But no, that's all I got for now.
Yeah, so do you have anything else you want to talk about kind of when it comes to this, or are we kind of good to go? I don't really have much else to talk about. That was kind of it, just going over Olympics. And
we'll definitely have some more Olympic talk in the future, and then State of the NBA stuff coming up.
Yep. State of the NBA will be coming up hopefully next week. So we kind of already set that up. We've been talking kind of in our own private stuff about teams and stuff. So look forward to that.
Yes.
And I think this is where we go into our plugs.
It is.
It is. So I'll go ahead and jump into my comic corner. David's comic corner. Ooh. So what I read this week was actually a reread, something that I have read recently, or read a while ago, and decided to read again because I got it physically. Daredevil Yellow by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. It is kind of a retelling of some earlier Daredevil stories kind of thing going on. It's basically like... It's not a retelling. That was the wrong word to use. It's like it's like a telling of an old Daredevil story. And it's very emotion-based, kind of. With all the color series there's also Spider-Man Blue, Hulk Gray, and Captain America White. But it's a lot of fun. It's written really well. The art is really good. So if you're interested in Daredevil or interested in just a good story in general, go check that out. Daredevil Yellow.
Nice. Let's see, what are we calling it now? My
Metal Minute?
Face melting metal minute. I think that's what we're calling it now. This week I am gonna plug a show that I went to instead of an album. So we're continuing to reach more uncharted territory. Yesterday, so Friday, let's see, what was that? Friday, August 5th, I went to a show that was Of Mice and Men, Marilyn Manson, and Slipknot. As you might know from listening before, and to those who don't, I live in Des Moines, Iowa, and that is where Slipknot is from. And I didn't realize this until the show, but they haven't been to Des Moines since 2009. So this was a really big show. I didn't realize how big this was going to be. But I went. Of Mice and Men, they were really good. They played a lot of their newer stuff that I'm not as familiar with, but they were still good, and Austin Carlisle still sounds really good. So for those of you doubting his abilities, you shouldn't. He still sounds really good live. Marilyn Manson, he's 47, so pretty much anything he does is impressive, and he's out there walking around on stilts, and he's still got that range. He can do the super lows and the super highs, and he was a fun show. But Slipknot, their show is amazing. Their effects are great. The music was great. They were playing a lot of stuff with a lot of energy. You could tell they were really excited to be back in Des Moines. Playing some songs a little bit faster than on the recordings, which was actually pretty cool. They played a lot of their older stuff because they knew the Des Moines crowd would appreciate that. And I appreciated that because I like their first 3 albums the most. So they played songs like Wait and Bleed, Spit It Out, Surfacing, Heretic Anthem, and then some of the newish stuff like Psychosocial and Dead Memories, Duality. I guess that's not super new, but Before I Forget, they played that. It was awesome. Love seeing the show. I'm not like a huge Slipknot fan or anything, but I'm like, yeah, if they come to town, I'll go see them, and they're in town. So I went. Great show. The crowd was great. It was a ton of fun.
Right on.
And if that tour comes through your city, you should go to the show because it's really fun.
Yeah, you were telling us a little bit about it last night, and it just seemed like it was a lot of fun. And
yeah,
I'm not a big fan of really any of those 3 bands. I like some metal stuff, but I assumed that Marilyn Manson would be a really good showman. I assumed that Slipknot would be really good that wise and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of reinforcing that is kind of nice to hear.
Yeah, for sure. And if you don't like the music, still go because the show is... I haven't seen a show like this in a long time. So it was great.
Right on. And, if Charlie were here, I think we went the entire pod without mentioning Chuck at all.
Well, we talked at the beginning about it just being a 2-man show, but
that's true. Well,
we miss you.
If Chuck were here, we would talk about a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't talk about anything different. I'm just kidding. Chuck's plug is going to be how much we miss him and love him so much. And
wasn't that the same the last time he was gone?
Yep, that's exactly what it was.
Wow.
We're just going to reuse the same thing whenever he's gone and see if anyone notices.
Come on, think of another idea, Charlie. Jeez.
Oh, man. Chuck, he really needs to step up his plug game.
Well, I think that will about do it. Check back next week, and we've talked about it throughout the episode. We will have more Olympic stuff, state of the NBA, a lot of stuff to look forward to. Find us on iTunes, rate and review, subscribe, all that good stuff. But I talked about the social media at the top of the episode, so you already know. Thanks for listening, and go Suns.
Yeah.